Hello folks and welcome to the weekend warm-up with me and him, where he is Alex Jacques, he is Alex Brundle and I'm Will Buxton. Hello, welcome. Welcome to Suzuka, guys. Is it your first time here?
It is my first time here. Raced many times in Fuji, but what a different layout this is, and what a beautiful part of the world.
You don't want to drive this like Fuji?
I definitely do not want to drive this like Fuji. I do want to drive this though, desperately, desperately.
Jacques, enjoying it?
Loving it. Everything that is promised about this place is true. It's absolutely phenomenal. Everywhere you look, just a wonderful sporting venue.
It is an incredible place. Just the history oozes out of every single part of it. Breaking news though. To bring you here, Sebastian Vettel is back in the paddock, this time in his role as Basil Fawlty, as he has opened a hotel at Turn 2. Not for people, but for insects. So that was nice.
It's terrific. It's terrific. A lot of chat about that all the way through the day.
Well, the curbs are yellow and black down there now for his bee and insect hotel. I don't think he's thought it through, Brundle.
There are plenty of insects out there.
Yeah.
Including
poisonous spiders and massive hornets, which apparently don't really like bees that much.
To be fair to him, I do think the bees need a hand, given the amount of large insects in the area. So good for him.
Well, anyone who's ever walked trackside here will know the sheer number of insects.
He's not terrified at
has.
all about going trackside for FP3.
There we go.
Monitor lizards last week. It's like life on Earth.
Right, should we get down to the serious stuff? 60-second review of Singapore, please, Mr. Brundle.
60-second review coming right at you. 5 lights for 62 laps of the Singapore Grand Prix. And it was Charles Leclerc on the soft tyre who charged past George Russell, and Lewis Hamilton on the hard standing who charged by the rest of the field for a couple of positions that he had to give back early on in the race. There was a bit of contact for Sergio Perez before there was a lot of contact for Logan Sargent, who found himself off the road in his Williams, causing all pretty much to come in and change from the medium tyre to the hard tyre. Fernando Alonso had difficulty in the pit lane, causing him a 5-second penalty. Those who did not change were Red Bull, who went different on a different strategy, which didn't appear to be working out for them. Starting on that hard compound tyre, they wore through the race and the Red Bulls lost positions until there was another virtual safety car, this time for the parked up Alpine of Esteban Ocon, causing another double stack for Mercedes, who gambled on a further changed tyre, and a final stack of the day for George Russell into the barrier at turn 10, which then allowed Carlos Sainz to take a smooth operation to victory by allowing Lando Norris to take the DRS to the end of the race.
That was beautifully done.
Yeah.
You can do that again. It was a great race, beautifully called, my friends. It looked like a bit of a snooze fest, let's be honest, for the first 20 laps. But as it played out, a beautifully tempered, wonderfully played Grand Prix from Carlos Sainz.
Oh, by far his best drive in Formula One. To have all of those facets, fast when he needed to be, tactical when he needed to be, just that reveal, that great reveal on the radio. Jolyon Palmer had got it a couple of minutes before, but that great reveal on the radio when he suddenly was like, it's on purpose. It was just like, whoa, what a twist that is.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal, and he is rightly exuberant still with what he did in Singapore.
The onboard camera came out in the week with the radio playing over the top of it, of the communication between Ferrari and Sainz, and the joy, the understanding in his engineer's voice when that "it's on purpose" radio message came through. And then immediately the team flip and start to try to help him with that process by telling him the gap to Lando. Calm, impressive, composed and intelligent.
Lando had a great race as well. George Russell, a great race until it wasn't. Lewis Hamilton on the podium. Been a little bit of talk throughout the week as to why weren't Mercedes at the podium for Lewis. I went to see the guys today. They said ultimately George's side of the garage had to wait for George's car. Lewis's car apparently was called to the Way Bridge as well, despite the fact that normally the top three go straight into the top three Parc Fermé. So they were going to help out with that. And by the time all of that had happened, Ferrari had taken their position, McLaren had taken their position, and then all the VIPs were at the front. So the Mercedes guys were sort of at the back trying to see what was going on. So that's what happened there. Not the weekend for Red Bull. The perfect season is at an end.
It is.
5th place, the best that they could get with Max Verstappen. But until that safety car, there was hope, there was a chance. It was just so badly timed for them.
They really found race pace, especially on the medium tyre through to the end of the race. But I think it was a circuit which just didn't expose the weaknesses of the other cars in the way that they were expecting. Not too much combined load. There's not really a high-speed section, and so they were forced to try to nail the tyre management throughout qualifying. They were forced to try to get it absolutely right. And I think they've been pretty honest in the fact that throughout qualifying they didn't get that tyre management absolutely right. Max Verstappen making some comments in the week that it just shows how hard it is to keep on winning these Grand Prix.
Yeah.
And let's see if they return to form here in Suzuka.
Sergio Perez, a bit of a scrappy race. Contact with Yuki Tsunoda that took him out in the opening laps. And in the closing laps, contact with Alex Albon. Lucky to get away with a 5-second penalty. Do we think that's fair?
I think there were a few confusing calls from race control and the stewards across the entire weekend. I'm pretty sure we had an overtake with all 4 wheels off the road. I'm pretty sure we had reprimands instead of demotions in qualifying, and we had 5 seconds for completely punting someone, let's be honest. But you've got to go for the gap. It's the old adage. It's the old adage made famous by this very place. If you no longer go for a gap, you're no longer a racing driver. He's always going to try and improve. But yeah, a bit of a sour taste for Williams.
There's a long directive about how those things are to be adjudicated from the stewards. And it's quite clear until you get further down, and there are so many caveats, and effectively it just falls to a judgment call in the moment. It's quite incredible how complex and open-ended that directive is.
Yeah, a lot of talk about the need, potentially, to review those kind of penalties for those kind of incidents. Anyway, we are down here at Red Bull. We are talking Red Bull. Why don't we talk to the World Championship leader? Red Bull Racing can win the Constructors' Championship this weekend. They need to be 307 points ahead of either Mercedes or Ferrari come the end of the weekend. They're currently 308 ahead of Mercedes. So barring another weekend like Singapore, should get it wrapped up here. Let's hear from your World Championship leader, Max Verstappen.
So Max, we've had a few days to digest since Singapore. Does that just seem like a bit of a bad dream now? And also, how useful was that weekend in terms of learnings?
Yeah, I mean, it was not our strongest weekend, of course, but it's important that now we just, analyze everything, and step by step, I think we'll get there. But there's also no real rush. I mean, Singapore is so different to what we will experience here in terms of the way you set up the car. So I'm also not worried that a weekend like that will upset our weekend here.
Are all indications from the simulator, etc., that it'll be business as normal, back to the front here?
It felt very nice on the simulator, and normally that's a good indication when everything comes quite easy. So yeah, I hope, of course, that it's going to be exactly the same in real life.
Now, we had George come in here, and he said Lando was one of his picks for a favourite for this weekend. Are McLaren on your radar for this weekend in terms of high speed?
Honestly, what they have done this year is quite impressive, from where they started to where they are now. So I for sure expect them to be strong, but of course I hope to be ahead.
And so to Ferrari, who just as in 1988 stopped the perfect run for the dominant team of the time. Great win for Carlos Sainz, but Alex, I want to start with Charles Leclerc, who we know still isn't as comfortable as his teammate in this car.
I was talking a lot about the understeer of the car to try to get it. They made a step forward mid-season, didn't they? And found a load of performance. And ever since then, Charles Leclerc says he's got too much understeer, then too much snap. He's one of those drivers that likes to rotate the car on the way into the corner, get it straight, and then feed the power on. Sainz acknowledges that understeer is there in the car, but seems to be able to drive around it somehow, and that's where I believe the switch has occurred between the two of them.
Carlos has really stepped out of the shadow, hasn't he, since the summer break?
Yeah, since the summer break, he's shoulders back. He's leading this team right now, and what a fantastic situation for a driver. There was a little bit of speculation about him moving around. He looks like the main man at the moment.
Yeah, he really does. We're going to have a long-form interview with Carlos coming up on F1 TV later this weekend, but for now, he was in the pen a little bit earlier today. Absolutely delighted to have got his first win of the season under his belt.
So Carlos, bit of a man at the moment. Great win in Singapore. What were those celebrations like in Singapore after your race win?
They were good.
How much can you tell us?
Yeah. I can tell you I had fun, and with the whole team, mechanics, engineers. It was a night to celebrate. It was a short night because we finished at the track at 2 a.m. from the debrief and everything, so it's not like you got a lot of time to go out, but we definitely had tons of fun, and it was great to see the team in good form and enjoying their day after what's been not gonna hide, a difficult year, a year that it's been obviously tough for everyone, and to give them a good reason to celebrate was a good moment.
Such a strong run of form for you. What do you put that down to personally? Was it a good summer break? Is it the car just moving a little bit towards you?
No, just putting things together. It's not, honestly, I don't feel like the car has come anywhere near what I want or what I like, apart from obviously working on setup tweaks and things that could help me and my own driving, what I want from the car. But the car is still a tricky car to drive. It's still a car that it hasn't given us an easy time this year. We will, I think, as soon as we go back to windy situations, long corners, I think we will still struggle a bit. But it's a car that in any given day can make a pole position now and then, like we saw in Baku with Charles, Monaco nearly, and Singapore and Monza, and we can still give us some good moments that I'm willing to try and get again.
And does that mean you think that this weekend could be a bit more of a difficult weekend?
I think so. I think it should be a trickier weekend. Definitely should come with should make our limitations come back a bit, but at the same time I'm a bit more open-minded about it. Before maybe I was a bit less optimistic. Now I want to remain optimistic and know that if you do a good lap in quali and then defending the race like we've been doing the last 3 weekends, always looking in the mirrors a bit, it could still be a decent result.
We're down here at Mercedes. It was the weekend that promised so much in Singapore and ultimately delivered far less than it should.
Yeah, in Singapore last year they expected it to go really well, and it didn't. They learned a lot of lessons from last year, and they were so well prepared. I think what they deserve a lot of plaudits for is going for the win. Just going all in for the win with both cars as well.
Yeah.
And George Russell was talking about that, and he was like, if I'd been left in second position, I would have been furious. And I think he would have been properly furious to see Lewis turning up as I fight the flies out of the way. But yeah, great that they went for the all-in for the win.
I was amazed how gentle Hamilton was on the radio when he was up behind George Russell, appeared to have more pace in that final sector of the race.
Yeah.
And he went, I'm slightly faster here, guys. Yeah, but in the final laps with an opportunity to win. It was incredible.
It really was. We saw great pace out of Mercedes. Is this a turnaround for them? Do we expect to see them more competitive for the remainder of the year?
I think they've got every chance of being more competitive. They seem to have the same issues, and definitely Singapore was a quirky layout which didn't highlight some issues with some cars. Still in the hunt for the Constructors' Championship as far as this weekend. They'll be hoping that they can move the car forward. We'll see later on in the weekend if they brought any upgrades for Suzuka.
We do have to, I think, talk about George Russell, the means by which he left the race on the last lap. It's not the first time we've seen that kind of a mistake from George, both in his junior years in Formula One and also this year, contact with Lando Norris, right at the end of Zandvoort, for example. Is that a part of George we need to be worried about? Is it something he should have, sort of ironed out by now?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? I kind of like it when we get a moment like we had on the last lap, because it reminds you that it's incredibly difficult when you're pushing to the limits in a Formula One car. They make it look easy. You're one moment away from a mistake like that all the time. I think it's mounted up. We've got to remember as well, they're chasing an imperfect car across the year. But I'll defer to the actual professional driver.
Yeah. Well, what interests me is throughout his career, he's been Mr. Saturday. The driver with that laser focus, the driver with all 3 sectors put together on a qualifying lap in a Williams. And then there just seemed to be, twice at Imola, then again over the years, then perhaps again at Singapore. There seem to be these moments through the race distance of pure loss of focus for George. And I think it's a mind management thing for him.
Fascinating stuff. Let's hear from George Russell. Still tremendously disappointed with losing out on not just the win, but the podium.
So George, as a driver, what's it like when you know that in 24 hours you'll have Suzuka before you, ready to play with? That must be exciting, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Suzuka is definitely one of the very best tracks of the season. Coming here to Japan is always a pleasurable experience because the fans are so hyperactive for Formula One, so happy to see everybody, and that really gives you a positive feeling.
Now, we're a few days after your crash in Singapore. Can you just talk me through what that process has been like for you? Have you downloaded to a sports psychologist? Have you had advice from Lewis, Toto?
It's been pretty good, to be honest. It'll probably stay with me for 24 hours, but I think in any moment of disappointment or failure or whatever you want to call it, you need to take the positives away. I had a nice phone call from one of the chief engineers basically saying, George, the only reason we had a chance of victory this weekend was because of the amazing job you did the whole weekend. These things happen. We're pushing ourselves above and beyond. We went all in for the win, and a street circuit bites when you make a mistake by 1 or 2 centimeters. So I'm not going to let it affect me. It's history. Looking forward now to the rest of the year.
And obviously, as you say, you'll be racing again in a few days' time. What do you think your prospects are for this weekend? Will this suit the Mercedes for this weekend, do you think?
I think we definitely got a good chance on Sunday. I think Ferrari will be quick again on quality performance. I think Lando's potentially one of the favourites for this weekend with their high-speed performance at the McLaren. But all the question marks are on Red Bull.
All eyes on McLaren this weekend in Japan. A huge upgrade package brought to Singapore, provided an immediate step forward. But the team said, you won't see what it's worth until we get to Suzuka. There's a lot of expectation down here.
There's a lot of expectation because they've got it across both cars as well. Oscar Piastri on the previous iteration of that McLaren back in Singapore. The team told me back in Singapore that even their new spec, they ran FlowViz on all weekend, still had more tidying up, still had more performance in it. So this circuit should suit them incredibly well as well.
They're saying that the expectation is to have as great a leap with this upgrade package as they had with their first upgrade package in Austria.
Wow.
If that's the case, these guys are in the hunt.
Well, a lot of people are talking about it. They're incredibly confident. They went very well at Silverstone, which shares a lot of characteristics with this place. And they're doing some marvellous things to develop the car, the amount that they have from the start of the year in a cost cap era has been very, very clever.
It's very impressive. Lando Norris had a good run out in Singapore, of course, getting on the podium. I was talking to him earlier today. He said he did give it a proper whack on the rear right, had a little giggle when he went, George just followed me straight in. He was clearly just, as you said, just following me, and he went right in and gave it an even bigger whack. But yeah, gave it a proper whack on the rear right, lucky to finish. A great job from him, though. He'll be excited about this weekend.
Stunning job from him, and a McLaren that are very much on the up, a team where he feels totally comfortable, a team he was involved with even before he drove for them in Formula One. He seemed destined to find himself in the seat of that McLaren. Feels very comfortable there. For Piastri, going to be a new racetrack for him, though. They're going to have to get him up to speed this weekend. Norris is going to be the benchmark.
Piastri with a new contract as well, tied in at McLaren until the end of 2026.
Yeah, fully deserved. And do you remember at the end of when they had all the saga last year, and everyone said, I'll tell you what, that is a lot of pressure to make your debut in Formula One, and we've forgotten it instantly.
Yeah.
We've completely forgotten it because of his performance, and ever since that car was upgraded for him in Silverstone, he has been mighty.
Mighty is the word. Again, we've got a full sit-down with Oscar Piastri to come your way later in the weekend, but for now, again, he was in the pen, talking about his new contract and expectations for the weekend.
Oscar, you've just extended your contract with McLaren. Give us your thoughts.
Yeah, obviously very happy to have that announced already. It was already around for next year, but to announce it for the end of 26 now is very exciting. Very happy to have my future secured for a long time in Papaya, so I'm looking forward to it. It's always nice to have a sense of security, and I think for me it made sense from my point of view, from the team's point of view as well. So, just that longevity and continuation together is nice confidence for us all.
Mighty is the word, Alex. A word for Alpine while we're down here as well. Obviously Esteban Ocon with that retirement in Singapore, but Gasly, phenomenal drive from him. Had him in my fantasy team. Obviously, don't forget to get yours done this weekend. Brundle has finally entered the fray. Jacques has not. What can we expect from Alpine this weekend?
Both McLarens in the fantasy team this weekend. Very excited about that.
Don't give it away.
Gasly. Oh, I'm not supposed to give it away. Never mind. Gasly.
Such a rookie.
Points for him. I definitely am to the world of F1 fantasy. Gasly.
Yes.
Points last time was a brilliant drive. Couple of things for Alpine. They're still potentially looking for an engine brake. That's kind of gone away a little bit. They're missing a little bit of power, quite a power-sensitive racetrack here. And Esteban Ocon, again, out of the race with reliability issues in Singapore. It's becoming a bit of a running theme, isn't it? The Alpines parked up on the side of the racetrack. This is another hot, tough racetrack on the cars. We'll see if they can make it with both cars throughout the full distance.
Now, let's have a little think about AlphaTauri, because if we're talking about storylines coming in here, the biggest one surely has to be not just that it's Yuki Tsunoda's home race, but that Liam Lawson is doing an outstanding job, and 3 into 2 simply will not go.
What a lovely problem to have. What a luxury problem
Unless
for them
you're the
to
drivers.
have. Yeah, stressful for the drivers. Liam Lawson, he's really seized his opportunity. Yeah. He's been great. 3 very different weekends. He's the first driver ever to score maiden points in Singapore, which shows you how unlikely that is to do. But what a great headache to have for the team.
We're hearing Ricciardo is edging very close to that seat. We're hearing that Yuki Tsunoda is edging ever closer towards being confirmed as well. If Lawson is left out, I mean, would anybody grab him, or do we expect to see Liam Lawson, someone of that talent, that magnitude of talent, left on the sidelines as a reserve driver in 2024?
It depends on his contractual situation as much as anything. You know how tightly wrapped up those drivers in the Red Bull ranks can be. But, you know, if you are someone like Williams sitting on a driver like Logan Sargent, you've got to be looking across at Liam Lawson and thinking, that is tremendously impressive, and I think he's in line for another tremendously impressive weekend here at Suzuka, at a circuit he knows so well from his Super Formula days. This is a massive opportunity.
It is. Quickly, does he have reason to be upset this season, though? Because he was next in line for an AlphaTauri seat.
Yeah.
It should have been, to all intents and purposes, it should have been him and Tsunoda in the car from day one. But they went for De Vries, then realised their mistake, then didn't go for him the second time, went for Daniel, only plucked him in as the third choice, and he's the one excelling.
It is quite strange because they rate him incredibly highly. He is still very, very young, and so I think they're playing around with the time that they've got there. But he's had a great year. If you can back it up with points again this weekend, that's about a 100% job from him. He's been outstanding. His reward might be not starting a Grand Prix until 2025, though.
Let's hear from him. What does he think about his options, his chances for racing in Formula One in 2024?
William, so many plaudits for your performances in the last few races. First points, last race. How flattering is that you've gone from being relatively unknown in the Formula One scene to suddenly this sort of man of the hour?
I wouldn't say man of the hour, but it's been very, very cool. Obviously, the last couple of races, we're just, I think, gradually building up, and Singapore obviously was definitely the highlights. But obviously now coming here, it's very, very different. So it'll be a whole nother learning experience this weekend. But I'm obviously really enjoying it so far.
Now, you stated very clearly 2024 your plans to be in a full-time race seat. Are you any clearer about what your plans are?
No, and it's when I say my plan obviously is to be in a full-time seat. That's my goal. But obviously I don't know when that can happen. So I'm obviously trying to do everything I can right now to show that I can be here. But at the same time, I don't know when that will be. That's not necessarily. I expect to be here next year. That's not obviously what I'm trying to say. But it's more that I'm trying to show that I can be here.
Sorry, I should have said desire to be in a 2020.
Exactly,
okay.
yeah.
Coming into this weekend, for once you have a bit of an advantage. You've driven this track. How much is that comfort for you, prepping for everything?
I think it definitely should help, but at the same time, it'll still be a big learning curve. But obviously, we have quite a lot of practice time in Formula One, which is extremely positive, and hopefully, I guess for the last few weekends, most of practice has been a lot spent on me building up to the car. Hopefully, maybe this weekend we have more potential to spend more time on the car, let's say, earlier than we have in the last couple of weekends, because I know the track.
Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda spent the week in Tokyo at the Formula One Fan Festival, having a great time here, as is Fernando Alonso and Aston Martin. Spirit of the Samurai on their card this weekend. Fernando loves all things Japanese, has a tattoo of a samurai on the back of his neck, and apparently when he was a young'un, read up on Bushido, the way of the warrior, the 8 tenets of the warrior class. I can think of a few he might have let himself down on over the years, but now, I think, firmly established. He loves this place. He loves this racetrack. But an odd one for him in Singapore.
It was first time he's not scored points all year. Says what sort of season he's having, but what a great place to bounce back to. And he had an amazing battle with Sebastian Vettel here that went all the way to the line last year. Just something about this place motivates drivers in a different way.
I think the question, though, for him this weekend will be, this Aston Martin, they kind of took a wrong turn with it in the middle of the year, downforce versus drag-wise, efficiency-wise. You cannot carry a car around Suzuka. The sensitivity to efficiency is just way too high. So if we're wanting a Fernando Alonso way of the Warrior performance, they've got to put the car underneath him.
They are slipping back in the World Championship, and a lot of focus is now moving on to Lance Stroll and Lance Stroll's performances. He is just a couple of points away from falling behind both Pierre Gasly and Oscar Piastri in the standings, with a car which, for half the season at least, was second, third fastest at worst. Big crash last time out in Singapore. Didn't take part in the race despite the fact the team had fixed the car up for him. Some question marks over whether he would be here in Japan, but he is here. He's at the track today, and the team tell me he will be racing this weekend.
Yeah, he described it as a blip, that big shunt back in Singapore. I think it was probably a bit more than that, and definitely, you know, he was not in a good way. He didn't feel right to race. You know, you've got to support a driver's decision not to race if they don't feel well enough and healthy enough to do so. But at the same time, again, another interruption in momentum, and I feel like a change of momentum is what Lance Stroll needs, because to try and get close to, stick with in some way Fernando Alonso and get enough of a foothold to move forward again.
Fernando does love this country. Let's hear from the two-time world champ.
So Fernando, you made no bones about last weekend in Singapore being a difficult weekend. What's the debriefs been like since then, or are you confident you've sort of turned a corner with it?
Yeah. Obviously, it was a tough one. We had some high hopes, but the race was a little bit, everything wrong for us, and we discovered some damage on the car from lap 2 already. We had that damage, so that explained a little bit the performance on the race. So yeah, I'm more confident into this weekend after knowing that, and we hopefully are fast again.
Seen on social media, beautiful samurai helmet. What is it about samurais that resonate with you? I know you've got a very large tattoo on your back with samurais as well.
Yeah, it has been always a fascinating thing to discover more about samurais and Japanese culture. Since, I don't know, when I was 14 or 15 years old, I was reading books and things. So now it's very interesting to come to Japan and discover a little bit more the culture from here.
Now, you've created some magical moments around Suzuka, especially your 130R moment, the famous 130R moment. Do you still get excited when you've got Suzuka in front of you and you're ready to head out on track?
Absolutely. My favorite circuit of the calendar. One of the best fans as well of the calendar when we come here, and we feel all the support. So it is a special race. We want to deliver something special, and I think everyone in Aston Martin is ready for the challenge.
On to Alfa Romeo, who do have upgrades coming, apparently all the way up to Vegas. They've got upgrades coming for the remainder of the season, so they haven't quite given up on it just yet.
No, but they haven't been in the points very often, and I think this could be a tough weekend. They are expecting it to suit the car more than Singapore, where they were really just hoping for the best there. It just didn't suit them at all. But I still think they're going to be in for a bit of a fight.
And after impressing in Singapore, Haas are expecting this to be their worst weekend of the season.
Kevin Magnussen's already said this is going to be extremely difficult. Told me on the way out of the paddock in Singapore that the Haas just does not like to break the turn at the same time. The combined load.
Good job that's not important.
On that, yeah, exactly. Well, especially around here, I give you turns 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., and you can make the rest up yourself.
Jackson's going to be fun.
Yeah, so they're going to struggle. It's also really abrasive, which for a car with extremely high tyre wear is ideal.
Lovely. Williams, Albon. We've covered off that moment with Sergio Perez, desperately unlucky, lost so much time. Arguably should have been in the points in Singapore.
Yeah.
But the man who brought out the first safety car was Logan Sargent. Is he doing enough to merit a place on this grid next year?
Well, he's had his opportunity in the European races. Those were the ones that he knew. This is a very difficult racetrack. And we were talking about that's why Lawson was so impressive, because he turns up at Singapore, which is notoriously difficult. You could forgive him. His problem is that there is now another rookie doing incredibly well, and he's dangling a bit, but he's still got time to turn it around.
It's exactly the issue, isn't it? The engineers and those involved with the rookies, it's so easy to say this is a learning year, this is the year where he's getting the information and the knowledge he needs. Then you can just throw it across to Oscar Piastri, to Liam Lawson. jumping in the car, doing the job after 4 races or half a season, whichever way you look at it.
It's not a finishing school. I think we need to sometimes remind ourselves of that. It's Formula One. This isn't where you make your mistakes and you learn your trade. You should already have those tools. And I'm not trying to be harsh on Logan, but...
And I do think that is actually part of the issue that Logan is suffering with. You know, you come through the ranks and all of those formulae in lesser or greater part are focused on you as developing as a driver. Then you arrive here, the entire sport, the entire paddock, the entire experience is focused on the audience. If you win or lose or demonstrate the talent that you have or not, Formula One doesn't care. Formula One wants a show and it wants you to sink or swim. And at the moment, you know, it's not working out for him.
It's not. But we wish him well, and he has a few races left to try to convince the team that he is the one for them for 2024. Right, chaps, that was fun. Predictions for the weekend. What do we see around the corner?
I think Oscar Piastri in third, Lando Norris in second, and Max Verstappen back to winning ways.
Nice.
McLaren 1-2 with Max Verstappen in third.
What?
I actually really like that. Yeah, why not? Why not? Lando P1, Max P2. Well, we heard from Max earlier.
Yeah.
He said, are you going to be back on form this weekend? He's like, probably. Don't really care if we are or we aren't anymore. He's checked out. Lando wins, Max second. Yeah, Oscar third. Let's go with that. Sounds great. Perfect. All right. Folks, thank you so much for tuning into the weekend warm-up. Here is where you can see everything over the course of the weekend. Wherever you are in the world, set your alarms for exactly the same times on Friday and Saturday, because Practice 1 comes your way at 11:30 tomorrow, Practice 2 at 3 p.m. local time tomorrow. Then on Saturday, it's Practice 3, again at 11:30 local, and qualifying at 3 p.m. local. Then the big one, the Japanese Grand Prix, Sunday the 24th of September, the race at 2 p.m. local time. And that, folks, is that from here in the Suzuka paddock. My thanks to Alex Jacques, to Alex Brundle, and to all of you for watching. Join us here in Suzuka for the rest of the weekend's action at the 2023 Japanese Grand Prix.